Recorded at the WNDU 16 News Now studios, this is the South Bend Tribune's Pot of Gold Notre Dame Football Podcast. Here are your hosts, columnist Tom Noy, Notre Dame football beat writer Mike Berardino, and WNDU's Jackson Neal.
And here we are for another week of Pot of Gold, week 3, covering Notre Dame football. And for the second week in a row, somebody has violated the dress code. First week, it was Mike Berardino, could not wear a blue shirt. And now the TV guy of all guys doesn't get the memo that we're supposed to wear a shirt and tie. What's going on, Jackson?
I didn't think we were doing ties today. Usually we haven't done ties.
That's Jackson. That's Mike. I'm Tom. This is Pot of Gold. That's the tieless Jackson. We have to do ties because we're going to do television after this.
Jackson has all his ties here. That's how the TV guys roll.
Exactly. He's got the closet here. So, yeah, I got to go to my closet and figure
When
out
do we get our closet? Don't we get a closet?
No.
I think Austin Huff has a closet.
Hey, he might. Yeah, he might.
Staying away from that closet.
All right, well, enough about closets. We got plenty of Notre Dame football talk. Yes, unfortunately, in a few minutes, we will talk about what happened Saturday in the home opener against Northern Illinois. But first, let's set the stage. And the third week of college football takes Notre Dame to Purdue, Ross-Ade Stadium in West Lafayette, Indiana. Not Lafayette, Indiana. West Lafayette, Indiana. Notre Dame leads the all-time series with Purdue 59, 26-2. The Irish are 28-14 all-time at Ross-Ade Stadium. They have won 8 straight in this series and 10 of 11. Saturday will be the first meeting between these two teams since 2021. And prior to that, Notre Dame and Purdue had met every year from 1946 to 2014. This series resumes this year in 2024 and runs through 2028. 2 weeks ago, we sat here in this very office, Mike Berardino without a blue shirt, and we talked about how...
I had no shirt that day.
You did have a shirt.
Shirtless.
Thank God you went.
Go back and check the tape.
We talked about that day that game, upcoming game against Texas A&M, was the biggest game in the coaching tenure of Marcus Freeman. Is Saturday the biggest game in Marcus Freeman's coaching tenure after what the heck happened against Northern Illinois? Set the stage for us, Mr. Berardino.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how you'd argue against that. And then the one after that, and the one after that, and the one after that. As you wrote in your column, I mean, there's really no wiggle room. There's no margin for error anymore. I think you said something like that. And, yeah, I mean, a benefit of the doubt and such is gone, the people have said. So... But then again, you know, you come out this week and Notre Dame's a 10-point betting favorite. They were 28-point betting favorite, maybe 28 and a half.
How'd that work out
against
for
NIU? But Vegas thinks this is a win for Notre Dame. It just needs to play to its talent. And again, as we said about NIU, don't give this goes double for a road game. Don't give the underdog any oxygen early, because I don't think that place will get anywhere near as loud as Kyle Field did, but certainly the players. This is their Super Bowl under Ryan Carlson, still finding their way in a new administration. Jeff Brom has taken his program down to Louisville, as Notre Dame knows well, and they'll see him again in a couple weeks. But big spot, Tom.
Big spot for the Irish. Jackson Neal, agree?
Oh,
what's at stake on Saturday in West Lafayette?
I mean, I feel like every single week, you know, like the Texas A&M week, I feel like a lot is at stake. And this was my game. I struggled on the schedule going into the year of like, this could be a trap game, you know, maybe coming off.
Wait a second, really?
I always thought this was
Did he put that in writing like we did? We put ours in writing.
I thought this was the ultimate trap game on the schedule.
How about that? I had Georgia Tech, and I felt smart briefly, but you had this one. Tell us more.
Because, like you mentioned, it's Purdue Super Bowl. It's, this is a rivalry. I just think this is the ultimate game where for Notre Dame, I mean, maybe now coming off a loss, they're going to be focused, but I thought if they were coming off a win against NIU, they would be not that focused in this game. Whereas for Purdue, it's at Purdue. First time it's been there in a while. This just kind of felt like the ultimate look-over game in a different, not as big for Notre Dame as it is for Purdue. So I've always kind of circled this game on the schedule, but coming off of last week, I think it's a huge spot.
This is usually the part in the show where we talk about the injuries and what's happening and who's back, who's not. Like Jordan Faison, he's coming back from an ankle. Tosh Baker remains out with a shoulder. Josh Burnham is questionable as we sit here on Wednesday afternoon with an ankle injury. But the one injury, quote, isn't an injury? The one situation that everybody wants to know about, including the media, who ran up the stairs about as fast as us media can run up those couple of flights of stairs at the Irish Athletic Center, and then scrambled over to the overlook as players were coming off the field, the practice field on Tuesday, is the situation going on right now with quarterback Riley Leonard. Is he hurt? Is he not hurt? For official purposes, for transparency purposes, Riley Leonard did not appear on the injury report that goes out on Monday when we meet with Marcus Freeman. Did not appear on that injury report listed by Notre Dame, so we don't know if he's hurt. We're told that he was a full, Mike Berardino was told that he was a full go at practice, was expected to be a full go at practice. He walked off the practice field, was headed toward the Goog, and then just kind of sat down and leaned himself against the corner for a couple of minutes. So Riley Leonard, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Pretty big storyline that we don't know about for Saturday.
See, I didn't see that part. That shows you how distracted I was. But
what were you doing?
Well, I wanted to see the mood of Steve Angeli and C.J. Carr as they walked off the field, and both were beaming. They were looking very confident and ready if needed. So we'll see. But, yeah, I mean, that's the official version from a Notre Dame official, and I know that what's out there, that it's kind of a range, we'd say right now. There's no clarity on this. It stands to reason based on what we saw with our eyes in the game against NIU late in the first half, where Riley Leonard sprawled out on the field. Two trainers come out, including Rob Hunt, and as Riley gets up off the ground after that spinning lateral 14-yard loss, he was, tucked his left arm tight to his side, and it seemed like there was also a play earlier in the game where he handed to Jeremiah Love, and that exchange might have left him, again, visibly uncomfortable on the left side. People will say, well, it's just the left arm non-throwing. Tyler Buckner against Marshall, that was an AC joint, grade 5 sprain on the non-throwing shoulder, and he didn't play again until the bowl game. Gator Bowl MVP. But Notre Dame's going to need stuff out of Riley Leonard much sooner than that. And but what it does is it certainly, even if he plays, and at this point we have to expect him to play and start, but the idea of running him, certainly as much as they did in the first half, hard to see that. The idea, I mean, he didn't have any carries in the second half. And you saw how that went. So it's, I'd say he's not on the report, but he should be, and it feels like he should be, but questionable is just kind of with the eye test. But again, the official version, this new injury report, you got to go by that. They'd like you to go by that. I will say this observation that I mentioned to you as we were waiting yesterday to go in, speak to the players and the coaches, the coordinators. Riley Leonard came in after the game, remember, and Jackson, he had both hands. After A&M, he was gesturing wildly. It was like a Joe Pesci thing. And he came in after the game, hands shoved in those pockets, right? And as I recall, in real time, I noted, because we're all thinking about that left arm, I'm thinking right thumb, right hand. Left shoulder, perhaps. And the only hand that came out of either pocket was the left, briefly, to do just a little scratch to the top of the head. And this movement, I'm no doctor.
Yeah.
But this kind of movement here, if I had a serious sprain of my left non-throwing shoulder, I don't think I would be doing this, especially if seemed like the game plan was keep your hands in that special hoodie we've given you with pockets and just get out of there fast. And he did, and he was asked about being limited, and he said no. With a little tinge of irony in his voice, he said, I felt just fine the rest of the day.
Well, as he walked off the practice field last night, he was carrying his pads and his helmet in his right arm, in his right hand.
Sure.
Then he changed it to the left and walked a couple more paces, and then just kind of set him aside, sat down, and just kind of hung out in the IAC for whatever reason until the players started coming up, the coordinators started coming up. So I kind of lost track of what Riley Leonard was doing. But as we sat here 2 weeks ago before the opener, I admitted that I would cringe every time that Riley Leonard carried the ball, starting against Texas A&M. I don't think he came out of that game healthy. Whether or not he was dinged when he got when the A&M defender got the targeting penalty, and then he hit his hand on the helmet on a follow-through with the pass. No way he came out of the Northern Illinois game healthy, whether it's a shoulder, an AC joint, a labrum, whatever it is. Riley Leonard is not healthy. How big of a situation is that as we move into Saturday going back out on the road, Jackson?
I mean, it's such a big situation because we talked about after that A&M game where he ran the ball 12 times for 60-some yards that, okay, in that game, we didn't mind seeing him run the ball that much. It was such a big matchup. But we then expected maybe him to run it 12 times total over the next couple games. But if you take a look at that game against Northern Illinois this past weekend, that first drive was probably when they looked the best. Leonard carried the ball, five times, 33 yards? Yeah, 5 times on that first drive and got his own, not a throwing score, a running score this year. So it feels kind of like the offense is only really moving, it's only really working when Leonard is using his feet as a primary runner, as a primary ball carrier. So, I mean, having him injured it's huge because he has not shown he can throw the ball down the field and lead the offense from the pocket.
So, again, we have no idea what's going on with Riley Leonard as far as his status. We are led to believe that he will play, that he will start on Saturday. But, again, we're taping this on Wednesday. Marcus Freeman speaks to the media 15 minutes on Thursday afternoon. We may or may not get clarification. But maybe by the time you hear this, Marcus Freeman's either going to say we're going with Riley Leonard, or he's going to say remains to be seen, or he may shock all of us and say, you know what, we're going to sit Riley Leonard this week for health purposes and go with Steve Angeli.
Regardless of where it stands, and even if you were fully recovered, whatever it is, if there were no injury concerns, no official, unofficial, still wouldn't be a bad idea to get Angeli a couple of series.
Got to play him.
I know that they don't really do that in this administration, but that was a college football thing forever. Mm-hmm. And, just kind of a change of pace. Tyler Buckner had his Tyler Buckner package as a freshman. The last time they played Purdue, the Tyler Buckner package was very useful. I believe he threw a quick little out to Chris Tyree, who just went. I believe that was it. It might have been Toledo. But certainly, it's oddly, the Steve Angeli package would be more pocket-based. It would be a traditional pro offense. But that really wouldn't be a bad idea, and maybe there should be a Minchie or a Carr, a third person. I'm not saying you just have a revolving door, but you have to have a little more recent positive institutional memory to draw upon than the Sun Bowl, which is getting kind of distant. If this is a week-to-week thing, and the way Riley Leonard plays, the way he puts that shoulder down, he does not shy away. Even when he tried to slide, that was targeting. You have to have Plan B, right?
A couple of other housekeeping notes as we wrap up setting the stage. Sullivan Absher will move to the left tackle backup spot now that Tosh Baker is down for this week. Rocco Spindler is back to the backup right guard position. And then also Notre Dame drops from number 5 in both polls to 18 in the Associated Press poll and to 19 in the USA Today coaches poll. So a lot of work remaining for Notre Dame to get back in national relevance of the college football playoff as we move forward. So that is setting the stage. All right, we've waited long enough. Let's do Irish Rewind. Never a doubt. What did I call it, Jackson? 44-3. Notre Dame is going to beat Northern Illinois. Didn't I go on air and say that?
I think you did. I remember saying I said Northern Illinois would score 14 points. So I was at least pretty close. The 42 for Notre Dame, not so much.
I had 41-6. I'll own that. But I did talk about the fact that they had the surprise road wins again. I didn't talk about the Boneyard. Boy, we've learned a lot about Northern Illinois.
The Boneyard. I love. That was a pretty cool thing to see. That
Coach Thomas Hammock, just a media marvel.
Really is.
Really good on Twitter. Everybody's like, oh, Lane Kiffin, he's so entertaining. I don't know if Hammock was always this way, but this week, wow, he is productive and interesting. I mean, he's watching other people's videos and commenting on them, or whatever. great. It's, I saw him walk out, and we put a video on South Bend Tribune on Indie Insider, the 1 minute where he went out to their now adoring fan base, and he just seemed, walking out there with his wife is a great moment for college football, not for Notre Dame.
Yeah, not for Notre Dame at all.
Do we have any idea why that happened? Like Marcus Freeman got up and again, props to him, kudos to him for owning it the way he did Monday during his press conference and saying, well, this is why it happened. The turnovers, the 3 and outs. And he rattled off all these football terms and football situations that Notre Dame failed at. But how does something like that happen? After all we thought we knew about this football team the week before, beating A&M down in College Station, and to come back and lay in complete egg and wipe clean any good feelings around this football program. How does that happen? Anybody?
Well, I would. Well, here's a scenario for you. What was, in retrospect, what was more stunning, losing to Marshall with that first year of the Marcus administration, first full year coming off the Ohio State game, the loss, or this one coming off the A&M win in year 3? It's an interesting conversation. But 18 returning starters for Northern Illinois, in retrospect. 115 career starts on the offensive line, in retrospect. And the thing that nobody made anything of at A&M, when Marcus Freeman said, I don't even know who we play next week.
That got
I'll
lost
figure it
in
out.
Yeah, that.
I mean, there's so much to talk about,
Right.
era of good feelings.
Yeah.
And, of course, you just assume. But it doesn't matter if he really knew or not.
It doesn't.
You can't say it because they're going to use it. This is the absolute anti-Lou Holtz thing to do. And I noticed that this week there was a whole lot more talk about Purdue in the coach's availability, and that's going to go on for a while. It's not stuff that we really use. That's just totally, CYA. Make sure you're not on bulletin board with anything. Even Al Golden, God bless him, he was giving alternate pronunciations of the second tight end because they don't want to offend anybody. I don't know if it's Bieber or Biber, but he's really good.
Respect your opponent.
We didn't
Of
hear
course.
Golden did say previous week that Northern Illinois, a lot like Navy with the pre-snap stuff, really good scheme on the running game, and if you're not careful, they'll go for 300 yards rushing. He gave them their props, and he said that Ontario Brown is one of those who can beat you, and Randolph can beat you, and of course the quarterback was very solid and better than we expected. But how did that happen? College football is about emotion more than we want to think, and Marcus brought him up so high that there was bound to be a letdown. In this case, Northern Illinois was more than willing to take advantage.
And as much as we've questioned and criticized and wondered about what the heck's going on with the Notre Dame offense, Notre Dame goes down with the opening drive, scores right away at 7-0 before anybody gets settled in Notre Dame Stadium. Ensuing kickoff down to the 2, Northern Illinois messes that up. There's stuff that they're on too. And you're thinking, with that Notre Dame defense, with all that experience, the veterans, this, that, the other, everything that's going well for Al Golden's defense, that's going to be a safety, and it's going to be 9-0 before Northern Illinois can even get settled. And before we know it, the Huskies are going 98 yards. It's a tie game, and right then, that kind of set out the first alarm bell that, you know what, this isn't going to go maybe the way a lot of people thought it was going to go, Jackson.
Oh, yeah, and for me, I mean, there's just a blown coverage right there. What really got me, it set off some alarm bells in my head. It was summertime in the first half. Northern Illinois had a 4th and 2 on the 4-yard line, and they decided to kick the field goal. Remember that when they
Yes,
did,
I tweeted that Hammock might regret that later because usually if you want to upset a 4-touchdown favorite, you got to score touchdowns.
But that's the thing, is that usually if you're thinking, okay, we got to upset this team, we got to score a touchdown. In that moment, he was thinking, we're outplaying them. We can afford to just take the points. We don't need to go.
You took it as a
confidence.
As a confidence
As
giver.
NIU was,
in the eye,
they were so confident. They were like, "Oh, we're in this game. We
So
don't."
I didn't look at it that way.
Yeah, that's how I thought of it in that moment. And I said, "Well, usually you should want that touchdown, but no, they feel so confident." And
They thought we'll be back.
We'll be back. We don't have to worry about this Notre Dame
Yeah.
offense. We don't have to worry about trying to stop them.
Well-
I think that was a huge moment for me seeing NIU. Like they have the confidence to come in to Notre Dame Stadium and win.
But they did not score again until the final minute of the game. That's the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
he thought they would be back, and so the thing they did is they held on to the ball. Time of possession was way different, 10-minute difference, and then I got to read the NCAA rule book more than I have in my career this week. I had
a little boring, some downtime there.
I just want.
What are you reading the rule book for?
Some R&R.
Research, and that was just to, and I'll take this forward. Well, you know the question I asked about, all the airtime that young Anthony Tresh was getting, and he's there. He was right there by Marcus's side as they were deciding how to use the timeouts. And not to belabor it, but if anybody's interested to go check it out at ndinsider.com. And I think that my conclusion, and I checked with some other folks in college football and in official capacities on this, and I'm reading it right, that the 10-second runoff after Joshua Burnham's injury, and the rule book says it can be reversed. You can get those 10 seconds back if you burn a timeout. And that was Marcus's, and when I asked Marcus about the timeout decisions with 2 left on that final defensive series, he's like, I wanted to save it for going into 4th down just in case whether they're going to kick or go for it. Because remember, if they had gone for it, they did make the first down, but it wasn't marked that way, then they would have been able to run the clock down to 3 seconds, kick it, and Notre Dame has no chance to answer. Notre Dame should have had 20. Bottom line, the way it worked out, they should have had 20. They could have had 25 more seconds to answer on that final possession, where they got to the 44, plus 44, because the clock after a review is the play clock's supposed to reset at 25, not 40. Now they could not have known that going into 3rd down, but in general terms, I come out of this thinking, if I'm the clock management guy, anytime I have a timeout and I'm in that situation and there's an automatic runoff on defense, and time's precious, I'm going to burn the timeout there. Just save as much time as you can as you're moving forward. Don't try to anticipate what the next play is. And I think they outsmarted themselves. Again, the difference between the review, you have no idea there's going to be a review there. You're just trying to make sure you get a chance to have the ball back with some time. They didn't have enough time. But 25 more seconds, Mitch Jeter would have had a chance to win that thing probably from, perhaps 40 yards, 45 yards, not 62.
What does this law say about Marcus Freeman?
It says a lot. It says, this was year 3. This was supposed to be the year where everything was supposed to come together, and it looked like it did after A&M. It looked like A&M was going to be the start of a new kind of, Notre Dame actually getting it done in the biggest moments, and then this letdown. It just shows that this program's not consistent yet under him. It's year 3. He's had his time to, supposed to take that leap, and yet it's still inconsistent. It's still looking like, in many ways, year 1, like we mentioned back to Marshall.
Everybody talked after the loss that drops him to 1-1. Hey, you know what? Just run the table, finish 11-1, and you're going to the college football playoff. You can't sit here on September 11th and say Notre Dame's a college football playoff team, can you? You can't count on that. You have no idea what's going to happen the rest of the way.
No,
right?
No. But you certainly can't eliminate them just because of what you saw. For one thing, they now have become the world's biggest Northern Illinois fans. They want Northern Illinois.
Win out. Go to NC State, beat those guys in Raleigh, run the table in Maction, and get the number 12 and get the 12 spot in the playoff. That's the only way I think Notre Dame really will feel good about whatever happens the rest of the way.
They're not going to feel good, but that could be very
helpful.
helpful.
If they finish 11-1 and Northern Illinois is a playoff team, I think Notre Dame will be like, you know what? We're okay. If Northern Illinois tanks and they go 3-8, then Notre Dame is going to be like,
yeah. If you can somehow convert this, it's an embarrassing loss, but in the eyes of a committee, it could be almost even at home, not a quality loss, but almost pseudo acceptable. We're quite a ways from that. Can't lose anymore.
Yep.
Cannot lose anymore. And needs USC to be really good.
Really good.
Surprisingly good. Needs Louisville to continue being significant or become more significant. And Georgia Tech has to recover from a stumble against Syracuse and needs to be a quality win. As we've talked, not a lot of juice on the schedule. And whatever goodwill you gained with the A&M win, you sacrificed it with the Northern Illinois loss at the moment. But that's why we watch, because this thing changes over time. And what does it say about Marcus Freeman? It's to be continued, to be determined.
TBD.
I think that he's handled. You know what? It cannot be easy to stand up there and answer those questions after that game. And, the stuff was going sideways. The band was, we could hear the band. He had to stand there for.
It can't be easy for him to have to stand at the podium in front of us all of us knuckleheads, and just sit there and stew as the band comes up the tunnel playing.
It felt like the longest 8 seconds in his
It felt like 8 hours. It was 8 seconds. It was like,
because it was the opposite of when after USC that was so crazy, and it was a huge party out there. Mm-hmm. But the band didn't get the memo. Hey, just let's take it down.
Yes. Might want to just play something a little more mellow next time.
So that was excruciating. He's so far, he's shown that stoicism that the players read about last year, Marcus Aurelius, that he brought before them. It's kind of a credo, and it's the whole every one of the slogans that they have in that building. They stick with them.
Out the window.
Well, no.
Choose hard. This, that, the other.
No, I disagree. Done. You lean on them even more, because this has got to be part of the DNA. You don't get a chance to reinvent yourself on the fly in year 3. Year 1, there was like, we gotta finish. We started off after Ohio State. No, we really got to finish, and then then it became by Stanford time. We got to really start fast, and so UNLV was all about start fast. Okay, that whatever. But I do think that the idea that the only thing that matters, and you heard some of this yesterday with the coaches and players, is the next practice, the next rep. That just make it bite size. No more, no talk at all about running the table. No talk. Just fix your problems, whatever they are.
One game season.
It's a rep by rep by rep. Get your rest, and this is one thing that they don't. Other programs have done this, where they say get off social media. You're all, everybody, get your social media accounts, deactivate. Clemson has done that. Sometimes they make them. I don't know if you can. I don't think you can anymore. Just say collecting all the phones now. But if I were, on top of that program, I would remind them that all that rat poison that you guys ingested last week is no better and no worse than all the negativity you're getting this week. None of it matters, and I think that's what's been percolating.
Oh, we can hear it too. Bringing in Sam King, Lafayette Journal and Courier, Purdue football, basketball beat writer, to talk a little Purdue, Notre Dame. First question, Sam, what was it like to have a week off? Second week of the season.
Not this guy. No way.
Yeah, well, it worked out well for me because my birthday was Sunday. So,
happy birthday.
There was no Saturday work. I could kind of enjoy some adult activities and not have to have the worries of beating deadlines and things of that sort. So that was great, but it was very unusual to play a game, have a week off, and now jump right back into what really is a grinder of a schedule. So I guess we'll see how well or maybe not so well that week off benefited Purdue.
It seems like it's been forever, but what did you see from the Boilermakers when they opened the season August 31st with that 49-0 win against Indiana State?
I think what people who saw that game witnessed was exactly what you'd hoped if you're a Purdue fan. Indiana State is not only an FCS team, it's a bad FCS team. So if you don't go out and win 49-0 and dominate that team, then you got a lot of questions. The fact that it was out of reach by halftime, there were probably some points that were left out there. There was a fumble when Purdue was getting down in the red zone that probably would have led to another touchdown. But the ball was spread around. 7 different players scored their first touchdowns with the Boilermakers. The guys who we expect to be big-time touchdown scorers this season, Hudson Card, Devin Maccabee, Jamal Edrin, those guys didn't score. So that tells me that Purdue definitely bulked up on weapons from last year to this year, which was a huge point of emphasis because of injuries and because of just lack of guys with speed on the outsides and things of that sort last year, which is why you end up being a 4-8 football team. Improved, and I think that's what showed the most going out and dominating Indiana State 2 weeks ago.
Sam, Hudson Card has a fan in Al Golden. I know Al's always very complimentary of the other team's quarterback, but it sounds like from what he said yesterday that it surprised me that he raved about his speed. Obviously a bigger guy, but very athletic. He said he puts him right there with Caleb Williams in terms of a threat. One of the fastest quarterbacks I've seen since I've been here, Al Golden said. He's a sudden player, so we have to make sure he's accounted for in the run game and the scramble game. Certainly in special situations, we have to be alert for him. A guy who was 24 out of 25 passing in the opener. But how about that part of it? Does that check out?
Yeah, last year I think at times we saw Hudson Card, what he can do with his legs, and he's very dynamic in that regard. But last season he also was playing with a busted shoulder and busted ribs. So as the season progressed, Purdue did not want him taking hits. I think just with Indiana State it was more about getting others involved. Clearly he's dynamic running the ball. I think he's probably similar in some ways to Riley Leonard, and the way he can improvise and turn what looks like a loss or an incompletion into picking up 5 yards, 10 yards. At times he really just can take off and get down the field. But he definitely is a threat with his legs. I think he's probably more of a threat with his arm, especially with, as I mentioned, a lot more weapons this season. So, he has that capability to, when a play breaks down, make you pay for it with his legs. But I don't anticipate him being a guy who's going to run a lot, but he's a guy who can run, and when he does, he is dangerous.
And then if Hudson's not running a lot, that running game for Purdue, 248 yards in that opener. We just saw Notre Dame give up 190 to Northern Illinois. What can you tell us about that Purdue rushing attack? I also saw a guy like Elijah Jackson breaking off a long run. What makes this Purdue running attack so dangerous?
Yeah, a lot of those rushing yards did come in the second half when the backups were in, which is great for, getting some other guys reps and having them take advantage of it. Elijah Jackson's a guy with a lot of speed, but he's probably the third or fourth running back on the depth chart. But Purdue does last year, actually, in Big Ten only games, Purdue surprisingly led the league in rushing with Devin Mockbee and with Tyrone Tracy, who's now on the New York Giants, and did that with, a makeshift offensive line. A lot of injuries decimated to the point where Purdue couldn't even practice 11 on 11 last year because it didn't have enough offensive linemen during the week. So now, because of that, Purdue went out and got a whole bunch of offensive linemen just in case that happens again. But what you've got is Marcus Bowe at right tackle. You have Gus Hartwig at center. You have Maha Musa. Those guys have started together for 3 years, which is, probably a huge benefit just for their familiarity. And then you're going to factor in Corey Stewart, who did not play in that Indiana State game and was starting for 3 or 4 years at Ball State. He's definitely one of the best linemen on Purdue's roster. So I expect the running game to be a huge part of this, especially seeing what Northern Illinois did just last weekend. So I know that when I was talking to the coordinators this week, they said, there's some things on that film that gives us, optimism that we're going to be able to do, to make some plays against Notre Dame. So, and why wouldn't you after seeing that performance by Northern Illinois? But yeah, I think with Reggie Love and with Devin Mockbee in the backfield, there's always, they're going to split the reps probably 50-50 or 60-40, but both are very, very dynamic playmakers.
I know it wasn't much of a gauge, but what is Purdue like defensively after throwing a shutout against a very bad Indiana State team?
Yeah, well, last year I thought Purdue's defense was good in spurts. It's unique. Ryan Walters had a lot of success running this defense at Illinois, which got him a head coaching job. But last year, for every sack, every tackle for loss, turnover, it seemed like Purdue would have a personal foul or give up a 40-yard player to kind of offset every bit of good that it did. So it was nice to see in this particular game that it never wavered. There was maybe one big play, which was I think a quarterback run that was basically a broken down play. But the big plays didn't happen, which shows probably improvement in that regard. Purdue's going to be aggressive. The rush ends are going to attack the quarterback. Purdue had moved outside linebacker Kadron Jenkins to Mike this year. He's got the headset in. They did that because he's probably projects more as an NFL middle linebacker than an outside. But he kind of showed his capability last week. He had or 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, had a sack where he had to run 35 yards to track down the quarterback in the backfield on the opposite sideline and take him down, which was very impressive. I think that Purdue made a conscious effort to upgrade the secondary, and one of those guys, probably the best cornerback Purdue has, is Nyland Green, a transfer from Georgia. He did not play against Indiana State. It does not sound like he will play against Notre Dame, but otherwise you've got Markevius Brown, you've got Kendrick Breedlove in the slot. They're going to be challenged for sure, but it's definitely a defense that's much improved. It sounds like there's some concerns with Notre Dame's weapons, even though maybe the offense hasn't been the strong point through 2 games. But Collins especially was one who defensive coordinator Kevin Kane mentioned. It was like, that's a guy who can really hurt us.
Notre Dame in the opener played a team, a Texas A&M team, that I believe had 28 transfers. And what's the number at Purdue if we count all levels that they brought in?
Oh gosh, I can't even
big
remember.
Number. I'm sorry.
Trick question for him. Come on, Mike.
Well,
Put him on the spot.
I tried to make. I'll just say.
Say a lot.
I don't know if
There's
these guys
a lot
are
of
hurt or
guys.
not, but I see. Just looking through the roster: UCLA, Kentucky, Colorado, Penn State, Arkansas, Georgia, a couple of guys. Ole Miss, right? Stanford, Indiana, a couple of guys. Auburn, Missouri, Mississippi State. Texas, Arizona State.
Maybe we should ask you how many transfers they have.
I lost track. I didn't mean to do that. But plus they have some NIU. There's an ex-NIU guy. There's Bowling Green, Ball State, a couple of Illinois guys, of course, Boston College. The question is, who's that more chaotic for? The team preparing for them, would you say, going into? This is their first real game with all this new talent. But as Dabo Sweeney will insist until this final day that there's a reason that they're in the portal, right? So I don't know. We're going to get a real good gauge this weekend, but how much quality is in all those guys from major programs?
Yeah, it's kind of a trickle-down effect, right? 4 guys came from Georgia. Now, if you're third on the depth chart at Georgia, you're probably a good player, but you come to Purdue, you're elevated to the top of the depth chart or near it. The good thing because it was about a third of the roster that turned over here, and one of the best defensive players at Texas A&M actually was Purdue's probably second best defensive player last year, and he left kind of surprisingly, went home over a holiday, I think, and after he said he was staying and came back and ends up with I'm not going to say what he got, but he was persuaded to jump in the portal, and a day later is at Texas A&M. So that's just kind of the nature of college football now, and you have to be prepared for it. The thing that benefits Purdue in this regard is almost all of these players were here throughout spring ball, and then on campus during the summer, went through a whole fall camp together, and by now you hope they're familiar enough with each other that you're ready to go out and play a team the caliber of Notre Dame. Some of these guys have played in these big games. Sheeta Silla, one of the guys you mentioned, is a rush end, and we talked to him today after practice, and he mentioned having played Notre Dame when he was at Boston College, having played Riley Leonard when he was at Duke, and he knows it's a big deal. This team knows it's a big deal to play Notre Dame with the allure and with the status of that program right now. But kind of to what you guys were probably talking to earlier, you can't treat Notre Dame any different than you treat Indiana State, than you treat Oregon State next week, and Wisconsin and Nebraska and teams like that down the line. It has to be the same preparation, just knowing the talent level is going to be significantly better than what you faced 2 weeks ago.
That was good. You got a chance to pronounce that fellow's first name, and so that's good to know. It's Sheeta. Yes. I'm going to practice that because I don't want that to go sideways. How upset? How much of a rallying point is it? I don't know. How much of that big bass drum should we be prepared for? Because that was the story here 3 years ago. They wouldn't let the big bass drum in for safety reasons or something, or because it wouldn't fit through the tunnel. But I get a sense that not only is it very large, but I don't know how much of a factor will that be in the ball game.
I actually, because of that, reached out to the band director at Purdue. Didn't receive a response, which
shocking.
They're still salty about it.
Well, also, I don't think he's going to. He's retiring at the end of the season. I don't think he's going to say.
Win it for him. What's his name? This is the most dangerous angle we
Big
get.
Gephardt.
Yep.
Win one for the Gephardt, I guess.
Yeah.
Win one for the Gibber.
Oh man. File that away, Jackson. That could be
That was
your lead.
that was definitely a storyline that was circulating 3 years ago at Notre Dame Stadium. That, I don't know if it was a distraction for the football team, but fortunately, it doesn't seem like it's going to be much of a talking point this time. It's going to be its typical halftime performance, post game band performance, and they'll beat on it during the game, I'm sure. But if you're Notre Dame, you played in big games, and this isn't going to be a factor at all. But I would not put it past Purdue maybe doing something to try to joke around or poke fun at the situation that happened 3 years ago.
I think it'd be fun in the student section. I apologize for suggesting it was a factor. But what about Graham Harrell? He would be a factor, and he has called plays as the USC OC against Notre Dame in 2019. They missed the 2020. That the rivalry was on ice that year because of COVID, but 2021. I look back at those are losses for USC, but 426 yards with Keaton Slovis at quarterback running the Harrell offense in 19, and 428 yards 2 years later in a loss with Slovis, and very good balance, excellent balance between run pass, 35 runs, 35 passes in 19, 33 rushes in 21, 37 passes in that year. What do you expect? What jumps out at you? What do you expect about it? About a Harrell offense, and how much will it help that he has? Marcus Freeman was the defensive coordinator in 21, so they have matched up there.
Yeah. So through one game, it's hard to tell because Purdue could have done whatever it wanted to against Indiana State and had success. But I thought what I liked about that game 2 weeks ago was when a play worked, Purdue would go back to it. And last year at times, I didn't think that was the case. Graham would call something, it would work, and then you go do something else. And to me, that play clearly had success. Why not go right back to it and see if you can kind of double down on it? In asking, I'm told that he's not calling anything differently this year, but it certainly looked from, the reporter standpoint like, okay, that's something that wouldn't have happened a year ago. And maybe part of that is because it was Indiana State. I don't know. We'll see as the season unfolds because the schedule gets pretty brutal for Purdue this season. But he's a product of Mike Leach, played for him at Texas Tech before he went, and was a backup for Aaron Rodgers on the Packers. And because of that, when he came in, all we heard was Purdue's going to run an air raid offense. And last season, I'd go in thinking, okay, Purdue's going to sling it all over the yard, and it's going to look like the old Drew Brees and Kyle Orton days, and you're going to throw for 400 or 500 yards every week. And it ended up not being the case. It was very balanced last season, and that was the case a little bit there against Indiana State too. So I think you're going to see quite a mix. It's obvious that Purdue wants to get a lot of playmakers involved and not become reliant on your key players. But part of that's also going to be how Notre Dame plays. Clearly, the secondary really good, and defense clearly is a strength of Notre Dame. So it's going to be more probably of the look you're getting and what you think you can take advantage of. And then a guy who I think is an X factor in this game is Max Clare, the starting tight end. Purdue's got a pretty good group of tight ends, but Max Clare kind of was coming into his own last season early and had really developed a relationship with Hudson Card. And then Max got hurt and only ended up playing 3.5 games, and clearly was a key guy in that Indiana State game, and somebody who is already kind of being projected as this is a guy who could be an NFL tight end a year or two down the road. So he's a matchup nightmare no matter where you put him, and I would expect him to be a guy that's going to get his fair share of targets.
Sam, we'll get you out on this one. There is no longer divisions in the Big Ten. No Big Ten East, no Big Ten West. They have expansion, USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, with everything that is now the Big Ten Conference as far as football. What would be classified as a successful season for a program like Purdue, which just doesn't look like it's ever going to be able to sniff a college football playoff?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because 2 years ago in divisions, it benefited Purdue, and Purdue got into the Big Ten championship game against Michigan, and for the most part played pretty well as you could hope. and then it was all downhill from there. The coaching staff goes to Louisville, most of them before the Citrus Bowl, and then Purdue with 5 or 6 guys opting out to prepare for the NFL draft. It goes and plays Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors in a bowl game and got slaughtered. So Ryan Walters comes in, takes over a program that's got a lot of new faces last year, and it just seemed like last season the games that were the toss-up games, very similar to the game Notre Dame just played against Northern Illinois. Purdue would find ways not to win those games more often than not last season, and you're looking at a team that really could have been 7-5 or 6-6, going 4-8, and now you come into this year off of a 4-8 season with the schedule Purdue plays, and I'm sure that Ryan Walters and the players at Purdue and the staff at Purdue wouldn't like me to say this, or probably won't agree with this, but I think if Purdue can get to a bowl game in year 2 under this coaching staff with a lot of roster turnover, as you've already pointed out, that's probably a success and a proving point that this program is elevating, kind of slowly climbing a ladder. But very much Purdue could go 4-8 this year again and be a much better team than a year ago. It's just the schedule. When you start looking at it and circling, this should be a win, this should be a loss. You look at it and say 4 wins is probably realistic, but 6 wins is achievable. So getting to 6 wins would say that this program took a step forward. Probably one or two of those close games where you have to make a play late, or in past years you end up beating somebody that you shouldn't, in Ohio State or somebody like that, or even this weekend. This could be a huge point in the career of Ryan Walters if Purdue can get the upset against Notre Dame.
Listeners want to find out more about the Boilers. Where do they find Sam King?
I'm on X at Samuel T. King, and Instagram. Stories posted at IndyStar.com, at JCOnline.com. Be a lot of coverage throughout the week, and also obviously on Saturday after game day. We also, myself and Nathan Baird from Indy Star, have the Boilers Extra podcast, which records on Thursdays and probably is on iTunes and YouTube and all of the outlets there shortly after.
There you go. Belated happy birthday. We'll see you on Saturday, Sam. Thanks for your time.
Thank you,
Thank
Sam.
you, guys.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
No voiceover for Pot of Old. Today's Pot of Old, of course, it's going to be Purdue and it's going to be Notre Dame. Number 11, Notre Dame, 31. Purdue, 24 on September 24th, 1977, in front of 68,906 hearty souls down at Ross-Ade Stadium. Don't know if that's the capacity there now. I think it might be a little more.
bigger.
So Notre Dame struggling in the third quarter, 24-14. They're trailing the Boilermakers. Quarterbacks, Rusty Lish, and I'm going to screw up this name probably, Gary Forystek. Gary Forystek was the backup for Rusty Lish. Neither of those two signal callers. Rusty Lish.
I remember Lindsey Nelson saying Rusty Lish.
Lish.
Yeah.
He was a Bears
Rusty
coach.
Lish.
Rusty Lish. Lish, Leash, whatever.
Spelled Lish, but
It's Lish.
yeah.
They don't get it done. They're trailing 24-14 in the third quarter. And guess who Dan Devine calls on to come save the Irish?
Miracle Joe.
Joe Montana gets the call to come on in. Third quarter, down 10 on the road, struggling against Purdue. Proceeds to go 9 of 14 for 154 yards and a touchdown. The last TD to Ken McAfee, 13 yards with 1:39 left, and Notre Dame comes back from a 24-14 deficit. 17 unanswered, if my math is correct, to beat Purdue 31-24. That is the last time that one Joe Montana came off the bench at Notre Dame. It also set the stage for Notre Dame to run the table. Something they may do this year too, huh? Run the table and win the 1977 national championship. Joe Montana had sat out the 1976 season with a shoulder injury. Of course, goes on to an NFL career, Hall of Fame career, 4-time Super Bowl champion, 3-time Super Bowl MVP, and a 2-time NFL League MVP. So that is your pot of gold, pot of old for this week's Pot of Gold broadcast.
Speak up.
Let's speak up.
Oh, I wanted to say some things about that.
No. You said your things about the drum and about the transfers.
I got
We're
some
going to be
things
here
to-
for an hour and 40
I had
minutes
some
with
things
what you have
say.
to say.
Did you mention they had lost to Ole Miss the week before?
They did lose to Ole Miss.
Did you say that?
I did not.
That's the symmetry there is interesting.
Why?
Well,
Is Ole Miss Northern Illinois?
no, but they had a big win at Pitt to start the year. That was a big win, top 10 Pitt. And, are we recording?
Yes, we
Yeah,
are
we are.
recording.
Could this be used in the show?
We're part of the show.
This
Let's
is-
go.
Let me find this
We're
again.
we're just continuing. We're extending
Notre Dame
the
at
show.
there's the win, and it was third game. They're coming off a loss to it wasn't Northern Illinois, but it was a losing program at the time at Ole Miss. They were post Archie Manning. They were not good at that time. 5-6 the previous year, and Notre Dame had been caught on a down week after a huge high in the opener, winning at number 7 Pitt, and so national championship on tap there. Although that would require some sort of person to come off the bench with the name that ends in a vowel
Montana.
or Angeli.
All right.
All the way.
We just
Speaking of Angeli.
We're not expecting that.
Now we're going to do our
Easy,
pot
are
of
we?
gold. I want one hot take. Boom, that's it. One hot take, one prediction, no expansion. We're doing this in like a minute. Jackson, start us off because I know you're going to be quick.
yeah, we're gonna see Steve Angeli in this game at some point.
That's my pot. That's my hot take. All right, that's your hot take. What's your prediction? Game prediction.
27-14 Notre Dame. They're going to throw everything they have to win this game. They can't lose this.
One hot take, Mike Berardino. Tick, 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 tick.
I'll go to prediction first. It'll be 27-12. I just like that.
Four field
Four
goals?
field goals. No, this defense will not allow a touchdown this week. It will not allow a touchdown. I believe it is a top 5 defense, and it certainly did everything. They needed one more stop, as Golden said. And I'm not allowed to expand. You already used the Angeli thing. I'm going to say hot take would be Mitchell Evans, first touchdown catch of the year for him.
There you go. My hot take, Notre Dame, it may be Steve Angeli, it may be Riley Leonard, but one of those Notre Dame quarterbacks will finally throw a touchdown pass for the first time this season.
Wow.
Yeah.
And my score prediction, 24-16 Notre Dame. That is the pot of gold for this week. We'll be back next week to preview Miami of Ohio and recap Purdue right here on the pot of gold.
This has been the South Bend Tribune's Pot of Gold podcast, your home for insightful Notre Dame football coverage and analysis.